So I'm going to jump into this new series where we're going to talk about aspects. It was requested. A couple of you have requested that I talk about aspects, and I really wanted to make sure I did it in a way that felt authentic to my style. And there's a couple things I want to talk about before we jump into the main part of this video. And the one thing I really want to talk about, there are certain things I don't talk about as much on my channel because to me, the work that I do, I like to get specific, and it's hard to get specific and be general at the same time. So obviously there are topics that are easier to do, Juno through the houses, Mercury through the houses. What does this mean? What does that mean? Once we start getting into conjuncts, to me, the funnest part of the work I do is analyzing the chart. So that means I have to go to this person, like, you have Moon conjunct Mercury, the same as your friend, but guess what? That doesn't mean it's going to play out the same way. Now, with that said, I already know this video, there's going to be people who are like, well, what about this? But mine is this, but this is this, and I read this. But you said this, but I said this, and what's going on? So the thing is, it's nuance. I always say we have to look at the whole chart. And when someone tells me something doesn't resonate, 9 times out of 10, or, you know, it's something in the chart. And if someone shows me the chart 10 times out of 10, I'm going to be able to tell you why it doesn't resonate. With that said, and again, I want to be careful in the way I phrase this because some of you are really supportive of the channel. Some of you just share your experiences. Some of you have shared your placements with me, and that's cool because now I get to see how it really plays out. And some of you have co-signed and said, yeah, that's on point. And so I thank you guys for that. And some people share their placements and then ask a general question. That's cool. But anytime I start to get very specific about certain things, people want a free interpretation of the chart. Now, here's the thing. A lot of the people on this channel have paid for their chart or they're on the waiting list. I have to preserve my energy for those folks. So please feel free to drop suggestions and say, like, can you do a video next about squares or trines or whatever? Or you're like, hey, I don't understand the minor aspects. What's a sextile? Let me know. But I just want to clarify this because I want everybody to feel supported in my channel because I want to be able to respond to people and I want to be able to respond to your questions. But if we start to deviate and we start saying, wait, my moon is conjunct my Mercury, trine this, square that at the 14th degree in this house and that house, you tell me what that means. I can't tell you. I don't do free interpretations is what I'm trying to say, because these people on my channel who are waiting for their readings deserve my time. And so I don't want to lecture y'all about that. I just am getting a lot of... All right. So today I'm going to talk about aspects. And to just kind of keep it very general, an aspect is basically the relationship between two planets. Is it favorable? Is it unfavorable? Does it have potential? Is it challenging? Does it bring about new energy? Does it bring about harmony? There's so many different aspects. And so the further you get into astrology, you'll see that it becomes less about, oh, I'm Mercury in Virgo, or I'm, you know, Sun in Leo. And it also becomes, well, what is that Sun in Leo? What other planet is it aspecting? Does the Sun square the Mercury? Does the Sun, is the Sun in opposition to the Moon? Like, what's going on between the planets? Because that's going to give you another layer of theme to the chart. And so the further you get in chart analysis, it becomes less about the pieces. It's less about, oh, I'm a Sun in Virgo, I'm a certain Sun in Leo. It becomes more about the relationships between those energies that are already there. And if the Sun means this and Mercury means this, then what does that mean for you? And so the originators, the originals are of course, the conjunct, the trine, the square, and the opposition. And you can also say sextile, right? Those are kind of the original or the main aspects you often hear talked about a lot, especially the conjunct, the trine, the opposition, and the square. Those are kind of the starting points. So if somebody's starting brand new, I would definitely go through there. The other thing is, then we have other ones. So I'm going to go through the basic ones today. But then it gets deep. You have septiles, you have biquintiles, you have quintiles, you have, what else we got? Quincunx in conjunct, it's the same thing. Semi-square, semi-sextile. I know I'm missing some. I'm going to make a blog about it. But the point is then you have minor aspects. And the further you get into astrology, they are interesting to discover. Now, the thing I just say with astrology is this. It's like, yes, you can get too far in the rabbit hole, down the rabbit hole, meaning everything has meaning. And then people want to layer, and I'm all about layers, I'm all about complexity, but it's important to get the basics, understand the chart first. For some people, I even have something where I have a service for former clients where if they want me to update their chart, any new insights I have, any new methodologies that I now use, they can do that. So if somebody's like, hey, you did my chart a year ago, can you add all these other aspects and asteroids to it? Yes, I can, look at the chart and we can do that. All right, so we're going to get into it. So we already know the conjunct. So a conjunct is going to be the easiest one to see in a chart because it's going to typically be in the same sign. Now, traditionally, it would have to be in the same sign. But you may notice in your own chart that especially if you are using, other house systems, even especially Placidus or something of that nature, it doesn't have to be in the same sign. Now, here's what I mean. Someone could definitely have Mercury, the 29th degree of Sagittarius or the 28th degree of Sagittarius, and they have Venus at the 1st degree in Capricorn. That in their chart, when you look it up, sometimes it'll say that's a conjunct. And so some people don't know that, but yes. And again, like some people might do astrology a little bit different with like, no, a conjunct has to be the same sign. But basically the conjunct is on, like if you look at someone's chart and you see those planets very close to each other, that's what we're talking about with the conjunct. Now, the thing you also want to know is we talk about orbs. We talk about specific, degrees of like how far can something be apart before it's no longer a conjunct, right? So if somebody has Venus at the 0 degree of Capricorn, but then they have their Mars, let's say they happen to have, I don't know, Mars in Aquarius at the, they have Mars in Capricorn at the 28th degree. That's a very far apart, even though it's the same sign, it's very far apart. And so the development of that sign in that person's chart might feel a little bit different, even though those are it's a similar sign. So the conjuncts, they act as a unit. They are fused together. It's like you can't do one without the other, okay? Is what a conjunct feels like when you have it in your chart, okay? And so those planets are very much aligned. So a person who has like a Mars-Mercury conjunct, well, your mind is melded to your actions, and what you think becomes what you do. And this person is pretty much going to do what they say they're going to do when you have that Mercury-Mars conjunct going on. It's not like they say one thing and do another thing. It's highly functioning. The closer the conjuncts, the more the planets blend together. Like I said before, how far apart is the conjunct? There are different types of degrees you can use. There are different types of orbs that some people accept. Some people say that's too much, that's too far apart. Some people say it's, you could be, and there might be different orbs for different aspects. We're not going to get into all that right now, but let's move on to a trine. Okay, so a trine is, now the trine you're going to see it's going to be the same element, right? And so think of a trine as harmonious. It recognizes each other. When someone's in a singing group, are they harmonizing? Are they in cue together? That is what a trine feels like. You don't really have to work as hard to bring these energies together. So the difference with a conjunct, it's hard to separate it, and that's where sometimes things can become sticky. So what I mean by it's hard to separate a conjunct is like, well, Mercury conjunct Mars. What if the way you're thinking about something is not productive? What if you get really bogged down by negative thinking, right? Now that's going to affect your actions through Mars. It's going to affect how you do things. And so the person can't shake it because it's the same exact energy. You get what I'm saying? So that's where sometimes a conjunct can be strong, but sometimes, it's considered beneficial, but sometimes it can become a bit, it can get a little problematic. But with the trine, it also can be like hidden talents. It can be also things they say sometimes people take for granted. You don't recognize that part of you. Because it just flows so easily. That's what's going on with the trine. So for example, a person has moon in Sag, trine Mercury in Leo, right? Those are fire energies. So those signs trine each other. And then especially if a person has the degrees match up, so that way this is a perfect trine type of situation, you're not going to have someone who is, their mind and their emotions get really intrigued by things. They're very passionate about what they believe in or what they feel through their moon. And the Mercury, it comes out through how they speak. You can hear and see how passionate they are, perhaps, when you have that connection there. So 120 degrees, and it's an easy flow. I mean, a trine is going to be that, that 4 signs apart type of energy, but it's going to be an easy flow of slightly different energies. That's the thing about a trine. Slightly different. What I mean by slightly different is this. Slightly different is going to mean it can benefit you because now you get to use a different type of energy, right? So let's say someone's moon in Sag trine Mercury Leo. Well, the moon in Sag depends on the person, but what if the moon in Sag is too self-righteous? What if the moon in Sag is going forward with conviction and all, you know, and very, very opinionated in what they believe? But that Mercury in Leo has that charisma to have it be brought across in a way that is appeasing, not appeasing, but it is acceptable to other people because Leo can be good with crowds. You see what I'm saying? So because Leo and Sagittarius are different signs, they're now, trines for some people can be more beneficial than a conjunct, if you believe it or not. When we have a square, typically we're dealing with like the energy of 3 signs apart. 90 degrees, there's tension, it's less cohesion, not in agreement. It's a rival type of situation, right? It's something that does not work well together. And typically when we're dealing with the squares, we'll see it a lot with the different, we'll see the squares with the same modality. So you'll have someone like, okay, Venus in Libra is square Moon in Capricorn, something like that. You'll see, let's see, like Moon in Sagittarius is square Virgo Ascendant, right? And so what happens is it produces tension because when something is going in the same direction or same speed or at the same mode, right? It's trying to kind of take over that territory. So when we have 2 cardinal signs, it's harder to see who's the leader, right? When you have 2 fixed signs, who wins, right? If you have something very, very different where you have Taurus fixed energy versus Leo fixed energy, that's very different. You have mutable energy. Which way do you go? So with the square, that is why sometimes we will often see those squares, especially within like a tight degree situation with placements that are in the same modality. But just because something is mutable doesn't mean it always gels well with another mutable sign or another cardinal sign. It's just not in agreement when it's in the chart. Oppositions are 6 signs apart. They are polarity, so they appear different. And they need to recognize the common ground. You know, an opposition is made of the same stuff, right? In a way, it's made of the same modality. You know, if you are a Taurus and your opposition is Scorpio, y'all are both fixed signs. And so in both fixed signs, they have something to do with security. Now, one is going to be more of the physical security and the resources, and one's going to be the emotional security and guarding oneself. And when you are at your height, if say you have Scorpio and Taurus in the chart opposing each other, that can be blended to be someone who's very, very well protected because you have your resources and you also protect your emotions. And that can be really good when you learn that they're not different things. Whereas when you have an opposition in the chart, it feels like, well, I either have to be this or I either have to be that. And the thing is with an opposition is you can merge those energies. Doesn't mean it's always going to be perfectly merged, no, but it means you start to learn the benefit of how they can work together as opposed to working, you know, against each other. And then we have a sextile. So again, the sextile is not, when we first think of our aspects, we are mostly thinking through conjunct, trine, square, and opposition. Okay, that's typically what we are kind of working with. Now, then we start to get a little bit more intense. And the sextile, I think, is an important one too. We talk about 2 signs apart. Let's see what I said here. So there can be 2 signs apart. Now, again, different systems, different astrologers will maybe have different arguments about the degrees and like in the orbs and like how far apart can something be where it's a true sextile or a true conjunct or a true trine or whatever the case may be. But it works well together and it finds something to latch on to. So that's something just to keep in mind, right? So what I mean by that is think about signs that are 2 signs apart and think about how they can work together. So let's think about Virgo and Cancer. Both can be private, right? Both can be, so you can have a person who's private, you can have a person who is aware of their surroundings, perhaps. If you have, what else is 2 signs apart? Taurus and Cancer are 2 signs apart. Also 2 very protective signs about comfort. They know their own comforts really well. Let's see what else. We have 2 signs that are 2 signs apart. Let's see, I'm thinking about here. Leo and Libra. You have social, like both can be really good with social grace, social outing, social, like being very approachable to other people, even though they're very different signs. So again, when you see sextiles in a chart, it's another layer to the person's chart, and it brings about a new opportunity that might not have been there. So when thinking about starting a new series, and I'm not even done the old series, I still have some house placement videos to do. Yeah, and I still have some through the signs videos to do, but I've, interestingly enough, just been like, no, I think, this would be a great one to start as well. So thank you for those who, suggest that I do some conjuncts and aspects and trines and squares and things like that. Again, what I said in the beginning of the video is that it's going to be very specific to the person. And so if there's something that doesn't seem like you, it is because maybe you have a square in the chart, maybe you have some type of, some issue with what's happening. Maybe the chart ruler of maybe the chart ruler of the whole chart does not go easily with that specific placement, and their house placements, and you guys know how deep in it can get. And so again, let's just jump into it. So I chose Mercury because I know I could have started with the sun, but I find Mercury very interesting. I think that at this point in my life, I'm kind of over sun signs. I'm over sun signs, and I just really like to really help us understand the other planets and what that brings. And I will do sun aspects, of course. So I'm probably going to break this down, and again, I might change the format, but I'm going to focus on Mercury conjuncts right now, and spend time going through Mercury through different, aspects. So let's see first, if we have Mercury conjunct Jupiter, this person's going to be known for their words. They're going to inspire others, and perhaps the words or this person's mindset is going to be linked to how they inspire other people. Because remember, Jupiter and Mercury, they both deal with the mind. Jupiter is knowledge, and Mercury is information analysis. And so when a person has both of those together, that can create a really, really strong unity and the ability to be influential. This is a person who's very maybe intelligent, and person's very influential with their words, and also impacting the way people think about life, right? That is what we're talking about when we talk about Jupiter. We start to think about life and experiences, and this is probably this person who talks about their experiences a lot in life. They might even like to showcase certain things that they've learned to other people, in some way relay that to the masses. Now, again, you're going to have to look at what sign it's in, because obviously a Mercury Jupiter conjunct in Scorpio is going to behave differently than a Mercury conjunct Jupiter Sagittarius energy. It's going to bring about a different type of level of awareness. Mercury conjunct Mars is a person of their word. They do what they say they're going to do. And you can see that in a myriad of signs. Now, again, if there's reason why it doesn't work that way, we would have to look at the rest of the person's chart. Some case there's something that's going on. I think with Mercury conjunct Mars, it melts together. It's like, I think this, I must do this. I have Mercury conjunct Mars. And so, and then my Mercury is trining my moon. And so, and there's in fire signs. And so with that, it really does bring about this kind of evocation, this, I need to do this. I need wow, this idea is stimulating me. Let me go out and do it, or let me go out and experience this, and let me go out and make this a part of me. Like what I think is actually going to influence the action that I do next. And so with Mercury's conjunct Mars, that is good. Now, again, if there are any placements in the chart where the person can be impulsive, or it can lead to doing something that's not good, a conjunct does not mean it's a perfect placement or a perfect chart. It just means that the energy merges well together. This is, like I said, a person of their word. And I think the best thing about Mercury conjunct Mars, though, is this ability to really feel that your actions are aligned with what you say. And so there's rarely, unless there's other placements in the chart, you're really not getting a hypocrite type of energy. This is a person who's very conscious and aware of, like, I want to do this because it aligns with what I already think. It aligns with what I already know. It aligns with what I already have analyzed. And so that's what you're typically going to see with that type of conjunct there. Mercury conjunct the sun. My notes. Mercury conjunct the sun. Okay, these people, your persona is attached to your mental abilities and how you communicate. It is merged together in some way, shape, or form. So you can't escape it. You know, when the sun is projection, it is what we feel comfortable showing the world, right? That is our sun sign. And so Mercury conjunct the sun is going to be, you're more comfortable expressing words. Maybe you're not as comfortable expressing with emotions if we have the moon, you know, doing something else in the chart. And so, you know, this is a person who even might be known for their intelligence. The sun can be where you shine. So this person's mind is a spotlight. People know them for their lyrics, if they're a music artist, for their words, if they're a poet, for their words, if they're a writer, for their, if they have a unique way of speaking. What if this is this is an Aquarius? If this is an Aquarius, this person the way they speak, the way they think, they're known for that. It becomes a part of the persona. And when the sun is consciousness, right? The sun is what we are conscious of showing the world, what we feel most comfortable exhibiting. So through that, you would be aware of like the importance of words, the importance of your communication, being known for someone who's a communicator, or being known for someone who's a thinker in some way, shape, or form. Now, let me go back, because my notes are all over the place. Like I was just like free writing this. So I'm not going in any particular order. Mercury, the conjunct Venus. I mean, I look at this as the person who is like bridging the gap in communication. You know, this is the person who, it's important for them to bring harmony through their words. This could be someone who's maybe like a mediator in some way, shape, or form. A person who appreciates pleasant words. You know, if you have someone like this in your life, they appreciate pleasantry. You know, they appreciate manners. They appreciate you greeting them in the morning. You know, some people don't care. They're like, I'm just walking into work. But your Mercury conjunct person might, you know, your Mercury conjunct Venus person is going to be more, have more of an awareness of needing to get that in return. They want to receive warmth. They want to receive harmony. They want to receive that. This is a person that might also have like understand their own value as a human being, as a person. Venus can be value, self-value, self-worth. And so depending on the placement, this could be a person, like let's say you had Mercury and Leo, conjunct Venus and Leo. It's a person who's very vocal about how they feel about themselves. And so sometimes you can see that. Now, again, if you have anything where you're like, well, I feel that, but I don't express that. Well, maybe your Mercury at a certain degree squares another placement in your chart, and it leads to you not vocalizing that, but you might feel that inside. An example of this, this could also be a person who's a smooth talker. Y'all might get in trouble, some of you, with these Mercury conjunct Venus people, because they might get in trouble. You might get in trouble. They're a smooth talker. They might smile a lot, no matter what the sign is. You know, so you could have a sign that's very alluring. This is Libra. Libra, I mean, you know, Libra can talk anyone into anything almost. You know, you have that Libra situation going on there. But then also, even if it's talking, it sounds like Capricorn. If Mercury conjuncts Venus in Capricorn, well, this is a person who, again, like we said, definitely know their own value. But this could be a person who, remember, Capricorn is good at getting us to think we should do something in a certain way, in a certain mode. And so the power of persuasion can still be there. But with Capricorn, it's going to be more, now it's kind of giving you a goal. Well, you should do this. Let's think about how we're going to do that. Tomorrow, let's do this. So Capricorn's going to go about it in a different way, obviously, than some other signs. All the signs are going to go about how they do things in a different way. But either way, Mercury conjunct Venus is going to bring about some of that. Now, if you have it in a certain house, yes, that can change things. Could you have someone who's more manipulative with this in a certain house? For sure. Who's more about trying to get that power. If you have it in the 8th house, perhaps, right? Versus more transparency in the 2nd house. You see what I'm saying? Versus more fun. Mercury conjunct Venus, more about the person who's going to share more about who they are and their own value and be very vocal about that through the 5th house. Okay. Example of this is Will Smith. His Mercury conjuncts his Venus. And so Will Smith is funny. He's charming. He's, you know, people like watching watched his films. People like seeing him in interviews. There's a charm there when you are listening to what they're saying. And it makes you feel good sometimes when you hear a Mercury conjunct Venus person talk. Also very jovial, you know, jovial nature typically. Or at the very least, there's a way of drawing you in, even if it's in a sign that's not that social, you know. Mercury conjunct Saturn. Okay, I do have a few examples of people, like famous people that y'all know that have some of these placements. I mean, with this one now, this is very different from a Venus situation. Mercury conjunct Saturn, you might have a more serious disposition, even in a more lighthearted sign. So this person means business, right? So, you know, it could be the person who, you know, like I said, if we say something that's more harmonious, a sign that's more like, you know, fun-loving, even if you have like Gemini, right? Mercury conjunct Saturn. What if it was in Gemini or something like that? You know, well, they're lighthearted, but if the Saturn's in Gemini, this has something to do with their goals. It has something to do with hard work. It has something to do with harsh lessons. It has something to do with control or understanding the way in which things should go. And so you could have a person that has those placements where there's a way in which they kind of facilitate the learning of other people. If you think of Mercury as also this learning aspect. So this person might have something to do with authority when it comes to learning. If you had something, do you see what I'm saying when I'm trying to connect the dots for you? Again, everyone's chart is different. You need, you know, the more nuanced something get, the more that's a chart interpretation, right? Because that's where the more the insight actually goes. There's authority in your tone, Mercury conjunct Saturn, direct nature. This could be the person that needs business, but if they're in a more lighthearted sign, in a more inviting sign, you still take them serious, Mercury conjunct Saturn. You believe in what they say. There's a seriousness, there's an authoritativeness to them. Some of them you could see like there's more of a direct nature or dry humor or serious sarcasm, bleak humor, things of that nature you might see with the Mercury conjunct Saturn person, especially if we look at certain signs. There's a definitiveness in their speech. You know, these people might even take learning seriously. Like I just said, they take learning because Mercury is all these things. We talked about it in communication, but Mercury, when we put Mercury in other conjunct certain planets, it's going to lift out different aspects of Mercury. You get what I'm saying? Example of this, who did I say? Jamie Lee Curtis. So she, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis is an actress, but she went to college to pursue acting. She didn't finish. I think hers in Sagittarius. She didn't finish, but because it made Saturn is sad. She's going to find her purpose, right? Saturn's going to make sure that, but she still seemed to, you know, care about learning. She still seemed to care about information and learning things in nature. She wrote some children's books, I believe. Yeah, she wrote some children's books. They said she's a blogger for Huffington Post. So even though she didn't finish college, I mean, you know, a lot of people don't, she found her purpose anyway. And she still values the written word. She still values learning through her Mercury conjunct Saturn. So Saturn is an anchor. Wherever Saturn is in your chart, it's an anchor of something that you like to work hard doing. And also, it was interesting because Mercury conjunct Saturn people mean business. They mean what they say. So it's interesting. I read something like she developed, I don't know what year this was, some patent for like certain types of diapers. I know it was like, what? But she wouldn't sell them. She wouldn't sell the patent until they made them biodegradable. That's a very sad thing. This kind of like humanitarian, like that's not right. That goes against my morals. So Jamie Lee Curtis is an example. Mercury conjunct the moon. These people speak from the heart, you know. You know, they speak from the heart. It's not a lot of guesswork of what they feel. You know, and even in a sign that's not really emotional, there's a way to tell people how you feel without it being about emotions. You know, there's a way to see, oh, they're mad. Oh, they're not comfortable. Oh, that person feels this way. I don't think they like that. There's a way to do that. And, you know, these people might be really connected to, you know, even the moon dealing with emotions, obviously dealing with people that can communicate really well with them. That's going to give them a sense of safety. So people who have Mercury conjunct the moon, you have to understand Mercury is that important planet dealing with communication and information. And the moon is where we want to feel safe. And so if you have someone who has any aspects, any serious aspects with Mercury and the moon, communication is going to be really important. So if you have a partner with that, I would really think through what, not just communication, but what types of things, how do they want you to communicate with them? In what way makes them feel safe and secure? Thoughts and emotions could be intertwined with the moon and Mercury person. So you could have some people who have a trouble, remember conjunct is together. You can have a problem. People can have a problem with separating logic from emotions when you have Mercury conjunct the moon because it's merged together. And the closer that conjunct is together, the more it becomes one. You know, but I also think what's good is that these folks can usually, they can put their experiences into words. So you know, emotionally, whether it's through music or song or something like that, these are typically people that can put their emotions into words and write something about it, or, you know, sing about it, or are just able to really effectively express what they are feeling. You know, and through understanding that, I feel like there's so many different possibilities for that placement there. You know, if somebody, let's say, had Mercury conjunct the moon in Scorpio, maybe you, and again, it depends on the rest of the chart, but this could be someone that maybe like you can be a good therapist. You could be a good, you understand how to vocalize your own emotions, and you can maybe help other people do that as well. Okay. Mercury conjunct Uranus. Okay. So, Mercury conjunct Uranus. Sometimes you get people that like say strange things, strange ideas, peculiar in a way, because Mercury's dealing with the mind. And now again, you got to be careful when you, cast certain things on people, but you have such a unique way of thinking. It can be misinterpreted for not dealing with reality, or it can be like, you're too forward thinking. Whoa, what's going on? Especially if someone maybe had Mercury in Uranus and Aquarius. Some people could be like, whoa, you're too futuristic, or you're too, like, what is going on, but you can use that to your benefit if you are in a field or in a situation where being different and revolutionary is accepted. You can have some people who might even, it works well for them. You want to make sure that you're able to relate to people, though. The difference is Uranus is not Venus. Venus is the ability to relate to people. Uranus is, I'm an individual. I don't care. I'm different. I'm doing things my own way. And so with Mercury so close to Uranus, you want to just be aware of that. If it becomes alienating you from other people, again, we would have to look at the rest of the chart to see that. Voice might even be unique. The way these people speak. How some people just have a unique speaking voice. These people, again, might rebel against certain societal norms and thoughts. Like they're always trying to figure out their own way of doing something, their own thought. Well, I think this. And it's like something very different than what you said, what society says, or something of that nature. Or they can use their voice to speak out. An example of this, LeBron James has Mercury, I think it's Sagittarius. Yes, it's Mercury Mercury conjunct Uranus and Sagittarius. And he's one of the athletes that actually has spoken out about injustice before. And, he talked a lot about, like, Black rights, justice, Black Lives Matter, things of that nature. And sometimes some people tell athletes, just shut up and just do, who cares that you have this experience through who you are, right? Who cares about, that, even though his house was vandalized with some racial slurs. So how you going to tell someone they can't talk about who they are? It doesn't matter how much money you have, you are still who you are. But anyway, the point is he's one of the athletes who is comfortable doing that. There are some athletes who, might feel similar to him, but they don't want to mess their money up. They don't want to be criticized. They want to just be seen as like, I'm not bothering anybody. I'm just going to play the game. So, LeBron James used his to speak out. He doesn't care. Like, and again, I don't think he doesn't do it in a disrespectful way, but he does it in a way that shows he's like, I need to stand up. And that's a very Sag thing. Gwen Stefani was the only girl, obviously we know, no doubt. She has Mercury in Uranus. Now, Mercury can have different ways of meaning, right? We can think of learning and information and analysis and process, but it's also just speaking. It also can be singing. So that was interesting there, I thought. Mercury conjunct Neptune. These are the people I feel like they can heal through their words. This is really, really strong for imagination. Any type of positive aspect to Neptune can be good with that. But creative abilities, this is a person who's like, facts and ideas and communication is more through illusion and fantasy. They can get really caught up in like things that aren't real. Sometimes you can say too much heads in the cloud, because, again, a conjunct is a merge. And so when Neptune and Mercury are merged together, when Mercury is what you see, what you communicate, what you see and interpret through your mind, and Neptune is what we wish and what we want and what we think something should be. And so you could have someone who is, you might say, oh, they're delusional, right? Now, again, we would have to look at the whole chart. We would have to look at the entire placement of everything, because you probably wouldn't see that if the person has Mercury and Neptune in the 6th house, because now we can apply that to what they're doing in their everyday life. So it's a little bit different. Okay. When I was doing some research, I did see a couple of singers that had Mercury conjunct Neptune. Again, Neptune, the ability to inspire as well, the ability to bring fantasy, the ability to make us think and see things that aren't there. And just like with music, you don't see music unless you're talking about, like, you know, the notes that when you play an instrument or you play the piano or something. But we're talking about when you hear music, you can still imagine it and picture it in your mind. And there are people who are really good at helping us do that. Mercury conjunct Pluto individuals, here the mind would be very, very powerful, perceptive, really strong mental abilities, a person that maybe can overcome anything when it comes to what's the word I'm trying to look? Learning. Like, this could be a person who transforms themselves through learning. This could be the person who's like, you know, I put myself through school, right? I had to learn this on my own. I'm self-taught. Nobody taught me to do this. Themes of the mind, you could sometimes see someone who, you know, is manipulative or wants control over other people's minds or thoughts. But again, what I say with stuff like that is just use it for good. You know, if you have something in the chart that can be about power or control, use it for good. You have the power to turn something into something else. So this is the person who can penetrate the mind. You know, you can get inside the minds of other people, interpret things deeply, and help people understand things on a deeper, more esoteric level. You could also see people who are into the occult or esoteric things with Mercury conjunct Pluto. That would be great for that, because you're able to look at things in a new way, right? And give kind of some type of, you know, I don't want to say transformation again. You evolve the thought process. You evolve something. You change something. You make something deeper. You help us see something in a new way. Speak on what is, also these people can speak on what is deep, probing, things that are harsh to talk about. You could have people who are investigators, forensic investigators. You could have people who are, you know, go out and you know, talk to people who lost a loved one. You know, you could have people who are more comfortable verbalizing things that are more obscure, things that aren't as lighthearted to talk about. Because Pluto has to go deep in order to really, you know, understand something at a level that isn't surface level. So Pluto can deal with these ideas of trauma and things of that nature. So, let me see, I did the planets. Let me see. I'm probably gonna add like the North Node or something too. But let's see, like Mercury conjunct the Ascendant. Okay, so your words are part of your identity in the way you navigate life. Your words are gonna follow you. So whereas the Mercury conjunct the Sun is more about your expression and your consciousness and wanting to be seen that way, your Ascendant, you don't choose. Your Ascendant is not what you're choosing to do. I want us to understand that. The Ascendant rising is important. It dictates the rest of the chart. And for some of you, you already have planets in that Ascendant sign. But what it does is, Ascendant is sometimes what other people perceive as you and how they treat you. And that is now your experience in the world. That is why so many people can be surprised by their rising sign. People are typically not surprised that much by their moon. Certain other things make sense. But rising, when they first discover, it's like, oh, because it's not a consciousness. The rising is not a conscious thing you're deciding to do. It's how people might perceive you. And you can definitely take advantage of that. If you're a person who's like, you know what, like, I'm not as tough as I seem, but people think that I'm strong because I have a certain rising sign. People can, you know, have that. People can say, like, you know, people think that I'm courageous because I'm, you know, someone could say they have an Aries rising. Like, they think I'm courageous, but I'm not, because I have an Aries rising. You know, and I'm not saying you can only be courageous if you're an Aries rising, because remember, the rising is not the sun. That is not the projection of the sun. The rising is not the core essence of it. Be careful with that. But an example of this is like people whose words follow them. I believe much conjunct the Ascendant. It can be great because for some reasons, but you also have to understand that whatever you say is now part of your image and how people view you. And so if it's good, it can be good. If it's bad, it's going to follow you, you know, pretty much. Now, let's see what I got here. I also got Mercury conjunct Midheaven. Okay, if Mercury's conjunct the Midheaven, that means it's on the Midheaven, right? So it's right there. There's, you know, communicative fields are really good for you if you have your Mercury conjunct Midheaven. Mercury in the Midheaven means you heavily use fields where you're writing, you're sharing information, using your mind. For some people, yes, it could be your voice. So it could be singing as well. Your sign is going to tell the story of how that comes out, right? Obviously, a person with Pisces, Mercury, Pisces, Midheaven, it's going to be more about your ability to inspire through words. Whereas if it's Mercury in Virgo, this is more so, your impact is something to do with your ability to analyze and help the rest of us improve something, because you're able to see something that we can't. And so your work is devoted to that. Your work is maybe, you know, I think of like the people who are like auditors, you know what I mean? The people who are, you know, have to report things out, you know, financial analysts or things like that. Like that's what I'm thinking of when I see like Mercury and Virgo, Midheaven Virgo type of thing. So the sign is going to tell you more of the story of it, okay? Now, Mercury conjunct North Node. Your destiny or life path is requiring you to use Mercury themes. Your mind is an important part of this. So you might, with all your heart and dreams, be like, but wait, I just want to be an athlete. You know, I'm an athlete. What do you mean? Mercury conjunct North Node. Well, you have to find a way to inspire people through your words, or you need to find a way. Now, again, we would have to look at the rest of the chart, but you have to speak on your experience maybe. You have to write about your experience. Is there something unique about your story as an athlete that can help other people or some way? Because when Mercury is there, is you have to tell your story. You have to use your voice, okay? You have to use your voice. And it also, for some people, does have something to do with learning, systems of learning, education, things of that nature. Example of this, Denzel Washington. A lot of times we think of actors and we're like, oh, they were just always, like, as long as I've been alive, Denzel Washington has been an actor, right? As long as I've been alive, he's been an actor. But before that, he has a degree, you know. So some celebrities have gone to college. They have other forms of education. Some even go back to college after they've become famous. But with Denzel Washington, there's clearly this theme of learning. I forgot what his North Node is, but even though he was an actor before, there was something about this, and he's given back a lot. He's created foundations. I believe he's given back to certain schools and things like that. So it's like, there's still this need to support the mind and the thinking of other people and the skill development of other people. Do you get what I'm saying? So even when a person's path changes, there's still a linkage there. And also two other folks I saw that had a Mercury conjunct North Node, Howard Stern and Gayle King, who have made their money off of interviewing people and through using their voice and, you know, through radio, through podcasts, through talk shows. And so that is another way that Mercury conjunct North Node, it can play out in someone, because it's showing with Stern, it's a Capricorn. It's a Mercury Capricorn, North Node Capricorn. So he makes money off of his voice. That is his path. Whether you like Howard Stern or not, that he is fulfilling his North Node according to what we know. Now, if Mercury is conjunct Chiron, I feel like it's the same thing. But the thing you have to understand about telling your story when we have Chiron requires you to recover and heal from something. And for some people, it's going to be more, you know, for some people, it's going to be more severe than other people. That's one thing I just want to keep in mind. For some people, it's going to be more severe. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for them to heal. And the thing with Mercury conjunct Chiron, you have to deal with your blockages. It requires you to heal others or heal yourself using words. For some folks, it might be as simple as like journaling, as keeping a journal, as therapy. If you have Mercury conjunct Chiron and any other symbols or signs of trauma in the chart, you probably should seek therapy if you are Mercury. Now, again, I don't give legal, financial, or psychological advice. You need to go to a professional for that. But I'm just saying what this might mean. You'll be effective once you have recovered from something. Use your words to heal. Let me see. Yep, use your words to heal. If you've experienced any hurt, speak on it. Or it doesn't mean you have to tell everything, but it's like channel it into something productive in order to get your voice heard. Because Mercury conjunct, again, here's the thing about conjunct. We always think conjunct is great. Anything with Chiron, you have to be careful because it can't be great unless you've healed it. So you can have something and be like, oh, Chiron, but this is a conjunct. But a conjunct just means it's merged together. And so when something is merged together, that means it influences each other. It's one. So your voice can be stolen from you, or your voice can be hindered if you don't deal with that Chiron situation. Now, for example of this would be Kurt Cobain had Mercury conjunct Chiron, and it was in Pisces. And as you know, he committed suicide, but there was a lot of cry for help, and there was a lot of like, You could tell in his music. That's why he impacted so many people who grew up listening to his music. His lyrics were therapeutic to some people. That's why so many people were so distraught when he died. They were distraught because his music spoke to a lot of people. Pisces energy speaks to a lot of people. Pisces channels the collective and gives it a collective experience through music or creativity or just their presence or whatever the case may be. So that's what happened with you know, that's an influence there. And also on Mariah Carey. So I have her book over, actually, her book is right over there. I have her memoir, and a lot of people always like kind of hinted at this. They hinted at this with Mariah Carey because she did have a lot of sad lyrics. So I know that like people are like, oh, well, what about the Fantasy song and Hero and all that stuff and, you know, the more upbeat songs. But if you listen to the lyrics of her songs, a lot of her ballads and things like that, she was crying out for help. She grew up in an abusive home. Her father and her mother split up. And the brother, her older brother, she says allegedly was abusive, and her sister turned to the streets, you know, to make money. So it's a lot of trauma that, even though we look at Mariah Carey and we're like, oh, glitter and butterflies, Mariah Carey, her memoir explains a lot. But a lot of people knew this before that because she kind of hinted towards it. But this is therapeutic. For her to release that book and finally put everything out there, her childhood traumas are in her lyrics. So if you're a Mariah Carey fan, if you're a former lamb, whatever, you know, if you know what I'm talking about, like, you know that this is something that most people who are fans of hers already knew. She didn't have this perfect upbringing, and a lot of it comes out in her music. That's Mercury conjunct Chiron. Malcolm X also had Mercury conjunct Chiron, and for him, so again, it's a little bit different. I want to say his is Taurus. So the difference here in Mariah Carey's is Aries. So again, Chiron wound was the aggression and the abuse, and again, Chiron and Aries that can deal with like independence or feeling attacked. You know what I mean? Because again, Chiron, it's not that the sign itself is bad or evil. It's Chiron is telling you you have to heal from this in order to fully get the full energy of that sign. Malcolm X, like, obviously he talked about the reality of the oppression, you know, of Black people through his words. He had to go through a lot in his own personal life. You know, Malcolm X, like, his father was tied to the railroad and ran over. KKK, you know, took his father and let him be ran over by a train. His mother went crazy and was put into a mental institution. Him and his siblings were split up. He turned to the streets. He turned to crime. He was in prison, and then he converted to Islam. So that is an example of Mercury Chiron, conjunct Chiron, of like Malcolm X had to tell his story. The autobiography of Malcolm X, he had to tell his story of his hurt. And for you to have Mercury Chiron, conjunct Chiron, I don't think it means you have to go write a book about it if you're not comfortable talking about something that you've experienced, but it's about channeling it into something. For some people, like I said, it could be journaling. For some people, it could be therapy. For some people, it could be simply talking to someone who you know relates to you, finding an online group and just talking about whatever it is, if this relates to you. And I think I did all the ones that I wanted to do. Of course, we could always do like Mercury conjunct Juno, you know. I will probably do an extra video about any of the other asteroids that I didn't talk about, you know, in another video or another follow-up. But that is it for this video. Please hit the like button and let me know below, what do you want me to do next? Do you want me to do sun conjuncts? Do you want me to do, I think I'm gonna start with all the conjuncts. I mean, eventually we're all gonna get through all of them, you know what I mean? So I don't have to do like an individual video for all of the conjuncts, you know, but if you have an idea, if you're like, hey, do a square next, do squares, do sun squares, I don't know, whatever. I'm trying to break this down because it just helps me to do it that way.